the execution within the context of the game, one team looked more prepared, one team executed better, and one team was coached better, and that was the Michigan Wolverines.
No question. I agree with everything you stated there, Chip. One thing I would like to highlight as well, just look at the difference in quarterback play. CJ Stroud, a guy who's been in the Heisman conversation the entire year, a guy who his name has been associated with first round type potential in the NFL draft, got outplayed by J.J. McCarthy. J.J. McCarthy played phenomenal football in a day where he needed to be at his best. No Blake Corum at all, basically. We know what he means to their offense. Not having your best offensive weapon in the lineup. J.J. McCarthy said, don't worry, Wolverines, I got this. I will make things happen with my arm, and I will make things happen with my legs, to go on for a total of 4 big-time touchdowns. He was at his best, probably one of the best games of his career, especially when you look at the magnitude of this ball game, the matchup, and who they were playing against. I was so surprised to see how he outperformed C.J. Stroud. And like you said, Chip, it seemed like from start to finish, one team was well prepared, the other team lacked sense of urgency, they didn't execute well, and it led to a huge, big win for Michigan, lopsided win in favor of the Wolverines.
Not only a lopsided win, but some huge explosive plays from Michigan.
Yes.
We're so used to seeing Blake Corum ground and pound for the Wolverines all year. He really didn't have much to go with today, just 2 carries. Donovan Edwards comes in, busts out an 85-yard touchdown run. J.J. McCarthy's throwing bombs, scoring long balls. I mean, is this the Michigan team that anyone expected to see, B-Mac?
No, not at all. Because the thing about Michigan, they love to establish the ground and pound attack first because they have unique, outstanding running backs. And then they allow that window of opportunity to take off for them throwing the football. So let's keep it real. This might have been a blessing in disguise for the Michigan Wolverines offensively because they had to do things differently in this ball game, and they were able to execute on explosive-like plays in the back end against Ohio State's secondary. So how good can this offense be if they keep this same mindset of being more an aggressive style, and then when you look and you have number 2, Blake Corum, back into the lineup?
Yeah, I've got to think that when we have seen Michigan be able to wear a team down over the course of a game and see those 3 and 4 yard runs turn into 30 and 40 yard runs, normally that's against Indiana. Normally that's against Rutgers. That's not against the Ohio State University, the Silver Bullets. And that's where I think a lot of the disappointment is not only going to be on C.J. Stroud and the offensive side of the football, but you tried to improve the defensive side of the football when you went to go hire Jim Knowles as the new defensive coordinator. You got picked apart by Michigan a year ago, and that was Cade McNamara. And now you've got the same kind of issue where you gave up 40-plus points. And again, it happened in different ways. It happened a little bit more spread out over the game versus a second half just sort of pouring on of the points. But still, just incredibly disappointing to see this Ohio State team, bad gap fits, allowing those explosive plays, getting worn down as though you were one of the bottom feeders of the Big Ten. Again, this is what Michigan does to the worst teams in the league, not to its biggest rival.
Well, look, Ryan Day was 33-1 against Big Ten opponents in his career as a head coach at Ohio State coming into this game. The one loss was last year to Michigan. So now both of his losses, as he's 33-2, are coming to Michigan. I can't imagine it's going to take very long before people are starting invoking the name of John Cooper there in Columbus. And I think we all know what happened with John Cooper. He just couldn't beat Michigan. With that said, Chip, you have said that Ohio State's still alive here for the playoff. What is their path now going forward?
They, first and foremost, let's keep it simple. Notre Dame over USC is the easiest way to create a scenario where Ohio State's going to be able to make the college football playoff because the ACC, we can go ahead and throw them out. Clemson loses to South Carolina. North Carolina has now lost 2 straight to Georgia Tech and NC State. ACC is not going to have a college football playoff team. Then you start to look at the Pac-12. That's where you want Notre Dame over USC, so no one from the Pac-12 is going to have one loss. There are other scenarios, too, where you have to wonder what a TCU one-loss team would look like against an Ohio State one-loss team. But I think that those debates still leave open the door for Ohio State to get in for one of the 4 spots in the college football playoff. again, the easiest thing for Ohio State to do is to look at a Notre Dame team that the Buckeyes have already defeated in this regular season and hope that that Fighting Irish team can take down USC, handing the Trojans their second loss and knocking the Trojans from the playoff picture, because that keeps Ohio State in the playoff picture.
Yeah, Chip, and outside of hoping that Notre Dame can take care of their business against Southern California, then you need to actually hope to see what you expect to see in the SEC championship game. You need Georgia to take care of their business against LSU because, hypothetically speaking, if LSU beats Georgia, it's safe to say the SEC will have two teams get into the top four spots in the playoffs. So they need some things to happen. They still have an outside chance, but clearly they put themselves in a very, very difficult situation by not taking care of their business today against Michigan, because now they have to scoreboard watch. And watching the scoreboard is never fun when you don't control what can happen.
Yeah, it was the Wolverines who very much took matters into their own hands, beating Ohio State by 22 at the Horseshoe. Bryant McFadden, Chip Patterson, thank you so very much. And if you want more from these guys, they've got the podcasts to have you covered. The Cover 3 podcast, that's Chip Patterson. The All Things Covered podcast, and that you got Bryant McFadden and his buddy Patrick Peterson. Check them out wherever you get your podcasts.
When you stay at a Verbo.
Rivals, massive win for Shane Beamer and the South Carolina Gamecocks, who hand the Clemson Tigers just their second loss of the season. But maybe most importantly, that knocks Clemson pretty much out of contention for the college football playoff. Russ Thaler here in the CBS Sports HQ studio. Bryant McFadden joining me now to talk about this pretty massive and seismic upset. How shocked are you, B-Mac? I know you had South Carolina getting the 14 points in this game, but how shocked are you that the Gamecocks actually pulled off a win in Death Valley?
I'm very shocked, very surprised. I felt like getting 14 points was the best way to go betting-wise, but I thought Clemson would find a way to win this ball game. When you look at what they've been able to do, Russ, winning ball games there at home, protecting the crib. They've been one of the best teams in college football when they're playing at home, finding ways to win. But then when you look at defensively, the big plays they were able to give up, Spencer Rattler once again continued to play pretty good football. He had some lows throughout this ball game, but yet and still he had more highs than anything, and he was very, very aggressive, and he played with confidence. Clemson's defense did put points on the scoreboard, but we saw a lot of miscues from their defense, something that we haven't really seen a lot of, especially from the guys on the first two levels. But for Clemson offensively, DJU had a horrible ball game, under 100 yards passing. Those are bad numbers when you look at the type of talent that is surrounding him, even though they had some concerns at the wide receiver position. He had a lot of errant throws, missed throws. Accuracy was an issue. He just never found a way to get into his rhythm. But you got to give your hats off to Shane Beamer and his staff, his players. They came in dialed in. And for the second straight week in a row, Russ, they knocked off a top 10 opponent. Last week, Tennessee at home. This week, number 8, of course, their rival Clemson on the road. Unfortunately for South Carolina, the season is over. The regular season is over because the way they're playing football, I'm pretty sure they would like to play another ball game next week.
Yeah, amazingly, Clemson is still going to be in the ACC championship game where they'll play against North Carolina. South Carolina might be the best team going right now in the ACC. As you imagine, they blew out Tennessee. Something about orange triggers, ACC. Something about orange, I think, triggers those Gamecocks and gets them to play their best football. But I mentioned how Clemson had won 7 straight against South Carolina. Shane Beamer just getting his feet under him really as a head coach at the highest level in college football. How transformative can this season be for the South Carolina football program overall?
I think moving forward, it builds confidence. The players clearly are buying into what Beamer and his staff is selling. Number 2 is great in regards to recruiting, especially the state of South Carolina being able to go into Clemson's backyard and beat them. And number 3 just provides momentum for next year's team. Granted, you still have a bowl game left to be played, but you have to like your chances, especially if they're able to bring back Spencer Rattler, add a few pieces here or there. And you look at the SEC East, yes, it's all about Georgia in the East. Tennessee, we don't know how they will look without Hendon Hooker. Florida still work in progress, even though Richardson will be returning, in my opinion. But the window is wide open outside of Georgia. So there's an opportunity for Shane Beamer and his staff just within their division alone in the SEC East to play inspired football, be consistent, and who knows how interesting things could be throughout next year in 2023.
But what a big day in college football. We expected it to be. Not sure we expected this kind of upset between South Carolina and Clemson, but the Gamecocks pull it off.